Buonasera and welcome back to my kitchen. Tonight we're going to make chicken thighs oreganato, and we're going to start here with our chicken thighs, which are already pre-washed in a salt bath, and they're in the pot. We're going to parboil them first, and once they're parboiled we're going to take them out of the pot, let them cool, and we're going to dress them with a little bit of butter, fresh oregano, breadcrumbs, freshly ground black pepper, salt, onion powder, and a little bit of powdered thyme. And I have added maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons of sea salt to the water. We're going to let these parboil. I'm going to bring them up to a boil. You always want to start with cold water. You don't want to start with hot water. You want to start with cold water. You put your chicken thighs in there, bring the water up to a nice simmer, and let them just simmer for maybe about 5 minutes, just until the fat starts to rise. That takes a lot of the fat and grease out of the chicken thigh. Also, by doing that, it's a little bit healthier, but you also don't want to overcook them. We're going to put our breadcrumbs into a Cuisinart chopper. This is about 2 cups of breadcrumbs. You just want to get them in there. And you're going to put about a teaspoon of sea salt and about a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper in there. If you don't season your breadcrumbs well enough, then they're going to be bland. We're going to add some fresh oregano. And about a teaspoon of onion powder, about a teaspoon of ground powdered thyme. Thyme you want to be very careful with because it can be a very strong spice. We are going to take our garlic, peel it, and we're going to chop it up. Kind of small. You don't want big lumps in there. And we're going to put our melted butter. I melted the butter. We're going to put our melted butter in here. Okay, and we're going to take this, and I'm going to put it on chop. And we're going to get a bowl and put our mixture of breadcrumbs in the bowl. Oh, that smells really good. So for our egg mixture, we have 2 eggs here. And we're just going to break the eggs. Careful when you break your eggs, don't let the shells go in. And look at that. This egg had a double yolk. Isn't that great? So we got 2 for the price of 1. We're going to add just a little bit of water, not too much. And we're going to add some honey. It's a little less than a tablespoonful of honey. That's it. And to that, we're going to add some sea salt and some freshly ground pepper. And that is our egg mixture. Our chicken has been boiling now. It just came to a boil, and I'm just going to let it simmer for about another 5 minutes, just to let the fat come off and rise to the top. We're going to take it out. We're going to put it in a baking dish and let it cool before we bread it. Our chicken is now ready to come out of the pot. it out. Drain. You don't want the water. You just want to shake it a little bit. And just remember, the chicken is still not cooked through. So it is still actually raw chicken. So please be very careful when you do this. Remember that you still have raw chicken that you're dealing with. And always wash your utensils, wash your hands very, very thoroughly. Even though it's been boiling, it has not cooked through. So there you have it. All of our chicken is out. And so here we have our egg mixture that we did before and our breadcrumbs. And what we're going to do is once we do our chicken and the egg and the bread, we're going to lay them on a raised grate to cook in the oven so that the air circulates around them and they get nice and crispy. Otherwise they get soggy underneath. So we're going to take a chicken thigh and we're just going to roll it around in there and pat it nicely with all our breadcrumbs. Now I made a lot of chicken thighs for just 2 people, but I like it left over, so take it to lunch for work one day, have it for a leftover meal when you don't feel like cooking. What you can do is, once they're cooked, you could actually freeze them, put them in the freezer. They'll last for about a month in the freezer. You take them out, heat them up, and that's a nice quick dinner for you. Our chicken now is ready to go in the oven, and what I'm going to do is, before I put it in, I've chopped very finely some more oregano, fresh oregano, and I melted some butter. I'm just going to drizzle it over the top of each piece. Not a lot. Just to give it a little added flavor. We're just going to put it right in the oven. Again, putting it on the middle rack so that the air flows nicely around it. It's on convection bake, and it's at 400. And here we have our chicken. It's been in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour. I think it was actually 50 minutes. I'm just going to cut it along the bone. That's little Max in the back. Just to make sure that there is no pink inside. Looks pretty cooked. What you want to make sure that there any juices is running clear, which it looks pretty fine. So what we're going to do, just going to have, these are baby bella mushrooms. I've washed them and I've taken the stem out, and we're just going to slice them nice. You don't want them too small because they will shrink in the pot. And we chopped up our mushrooms. We have an onion here, and we're going to take the stem off the onion, and we're just going to score it down here, and we're going to score it around the root, but not cut through. Okay, and then we're going to take our onion, and we're just going to, where we scored, we're just going to peel it. Get all the skin off. Discard all that. And what we're going to do is take our onion and we're going to cut it in half. And we're going to take it and we're going to chop down, but we're not going to cut all the way through the root. We're just going to cut right up to the root. And then we're going to take our knife and just go right up to the root again. And we're going to cut down. say thanks for coming. That, my friends, is the best way to cut an onion. So we're going to take our onion and we're going to add it to the pot here. And then we're going to take some garlic. Oops. Going to chop up some garlic, and I like to chop it fine. I don't like big pieces. So I'm going to take actually 2 cloves of garlic. So that was 1 medium-sized onion, and it's a regular yellow onion. It's not anything special. It's just a regular yellow onion is fine. Some people use sweet onions. I just prefer the yellow ones. And 2 cloves of garlic. And we're going to add that to the pot. We are going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to add a nice drizzle of a good olive oil. And we're going to put that on the stove. Put it on a low flame. You don't want to cook it on a high flame. I'm going to add some freshly ground black pepper to it. And we're just going to let that simmer until our onions and our garlic start getting perfumey, and you could smell them, and the onions become clear. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add our mushrooms, cook that down, add a tiny bit of white wine, 1.5 cups of arborio rice with 4 to 5 cups of chicken broth. Our onions and garlic have been sauteing. The onions are nice and clear. Garlic is fragrant. We're going to throw in our mushrooms. Right, and the mushrooms are going to release a little bit of water, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to stir that up nice, and we're going to put the top on it and just let that simmer nicely. Our mushrooms should be done, and yes, they are. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to add just a little bit of white wine to this, not much. Probably about not even 1/4 cup. Maybe about 2 tablespoons full of white wine. And you want to turn your flame up just a little bit so that you cook the alcohol off of that before you put your rice in. What we're going to do here is I'm going to take powdered chicken bouillon, and I'm adding it to 2 cups of warm water. We're going to start with 2 cups of warm water first. We're probably going to go to 4 to 5 cups depending on how the rice cooks. So we're just going to add a nice little amount to there. And you want to add a good amount because if you just add water, it's a very bland rice. And you don't want to do that. You want a nice flavor. Just stir it up there. Keep stirring this. Once this wine has cooked down, we're going to add our arborio rice to this, and we're going to stir it. We're going to coat the rice, and we're just going to let it more or less toast for maybe a minute or 2 on the flame. Once it does that, then we're going to start adding our liquid. Now with risotto, you add liquid a little at a time. You do not add the whole thing. What I do is I prefer to add maybe 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup at a time. I stir it, I let it cook down, add another 1/2 to 3/4 cup, let it cook down, and we keep going like that until the rice is cooked. So our wine is pretty much cooked now, cooked down, the alcohol is cooked out of it. This is 1.5 cups of arborio rice. And we're just going to stir it up there and make sure that you give it a good stir and have all the rice kernels coated with the butter, the olive oil, and the wine, the mushroom liquid. And we're just going to let that toast on a medium-high flame for about a minute. And then we're going to start adding our liquid to it. When you do this, always make sure you stand by your stove and continually stir. You do not want your rice to stick. So in the beginning, I'm just going to add a little bit more than 3/4 of a cup, probably about a cup. Stir it up nice. And just go around the edges because you don't want anything sticking to the bottom of the pan. And lower your heat to a simmer. I would say a high simmer is good. I'm going to let that water come to a boil, and once it does, then we'll continue adding our water. We've added now most of the first 2 cups of water. I'm just going to add the last half cup, and what I'm going to do now is the next 2 cups are just going to be regular plain water. We're not going to add the chicken broth to the next 2 cups, otherwise you'll end up with a very salty rice. That first 2 cups will give it enough flavor so that it'll give it a good flavor, but without overpowering it. So the next 2 cups are just going to be regular plain water. We're just going to let this last half cup simmer down. Once it starts, then we'll continue adding water. So our rice has been cooking, and we're going to add our last half cup of water. And that's going to be that. I'm just going to stir it up. And once that's all absorbed and cooked down, what we're going to do is we're going to add some Reggiano Parmigiano to that. Give it a nice little flavor. And I wish you could smell this. It smells really good. You could smell the garlic, the onions, the mushrooms. Excellent. It's going to be a really good risotto. And notice how it's creamy, but there's no cream in it. So we're just going to let that sit there. I'm just going to cover it. And in about another 5 or 10 minutes, we'll come back to it. And it should be done. Alright, our water has cooked down, and we're just going to add the Parmigiano Reggiano now. And I just add to taste. I prefer a lot of it. And you just stir it in there, and you want to turn the flame off. Stir a little bit more in. And there you have it, a mushroom risotto. And we want to keep this covered until you're ready to serve it, because you want to serve it hot. You do not want to tepid risotto. Allora, here we have it, our chicken thighs oreganato. We have our mushroom risotto, and we have some sauteed string beans as a vegetable. And please, I can't emphasize enough that when you do cook chicken, always, 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 please make sure that it's always done well inside. You don't want to dry it out, but you don't want any pink or red or any kind of red juice flowing from your chicken. You want to make sure the juices are clear and the meat is white. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again.